I need your help. Please subscribe my channel. My name is Terry King, and I was 34 the first time I understood what silence really was. Not the kind that lingers after shouting, but the kind that fills a space that belongs entirely to you. When I unlocked the door to my first home, the key trembled between my fingers. The entryway carried the faint scent of paint and dust. Mine. I leaned against the wall and just listened. No game shows buzzing from a TV. No dishes clattering. No voices ricocheting off paper-thin walls. Only air still obedient, waiting. For years I believed peace was something you could earn. Work hard enough, help enough, sacrifice enough, and maybe your family would finally let you breathe. But that's not how the Kings worked. My parents never yelled. They didn't need to. They just took. Every favor I did, every bill I covered, every errand I ran tied me a little tighter to their needs. My 20s dissolved into their responsibilities. My mother, expert in emotional debt, called it family duty. My father called it doing your part. Julia, my younger sister, would roll her eyes, toss me her half of the internet bill, and vanish with her friends. By 30, I was paying half the mortgage on a house that wasn't mine. I fixed their water heater, replaced the couch Julia's unwashed dog destroyed, and still felt guilty for wanting weekends to myself. When my loan approval finally came through, I didn't tell a soul. I packed in secret, one drawer at a time while they were out. The only thing I said before leaving was, "You'll need to transfer the internet bill out of my name." My mother blinked like she'd misheard. My father's voice wavered. "You're moving out?" I nodded. "Today." And I walked out without looking back. That first week in my new house felt like heaven. It wasn't fancy, 2 bedrooms, an overgrown backyard, a pool that needed fixing, but it was mine. I bought the essentials. A mattress, a small table, 2 chairs, a cheap couch. No television. No noise. At night, I lit candles and cooked simple meals for one. For the first time in years, I ate without glancing at the clock or bracing for someone to call my name. Sometimes after dinner, I'd slip into the pool, even though the water was icy, floating on my back beneath the sky, whispering, "This is mine. All of it. Mine." I didn't share my address. Didn't post photos online. It wasn't secrecy, it was self-preservation. Freedom is delicate, especially when you've spent a lifetime proving you don't deserve it. 8 days later, that fragile peace shattered. It was late. I'd worked a long shift at the firm and stopped for takeout. When my headlights swept over the driveway, they froze. 2 cars. One of them unmistakably my father's. The same dent still visible from 2011. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, hoping I was wrong. Maybe they were visiting a neighbor. But when I opened the door, the smell hit me first. Wet dog, old laundry, and Julia's cloying vanilla perfume. Inside, the world tilted. My parents were on my couch, folding towels from a brand new pack I just bought. My father sipped from my favorite mug. Julia was sprawled out, earbuds in, her mutt, yes, the same one, digging its claws into my cushions. Open suitcases. Grocery bags. A half-eaten rotisserie chicken sat on the table I'd cleaned the night before. "Hi, sweetheart," my mom chirped as if this were normal. How did you get in?" I heard myself ask. She smiled, pulling a key from her pocket. "Don't fuss. You gave us a spare ages ago. I didn't give you this address." "Oh, relax," she said, waving her hand like I was being dramatic. "It's family property now. Let's not make a scene." Family property. They all looked so calm, like it was some private joke I wasn't in on. Like this intrusion was perfectly reasonable. I wanted to shout, to throw them out. But years of conditioning kept me still. Every guilt-soaked dinner, every "be grateful and family comes first" echoed in my head. So instead I smiled, a tight, trembling smile. "You can stay," I heard myself say. "Just for a little while." I told myself it would be 1 week. That night I barely slept. The house creaked with new noises, footsteps, running water, laughter. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to the dark, "I should have changed the locks." But I didn't. Not yet. Some part of me still hoped they'd leave on their own. By the second morning, it was obvious they weren't leaving. My mom was already rearranging the kitchen. "The cup should go above the sink," she said like she'd lived there forever. My dad was in the garage, sorting through my tools and muttering about better organization. Julia had set up her laptop in my office, coffee cup and all, like it was her personal workspace. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway. She didn't even look up. Working. Don't worry, I'll be quiet during your calls. She wasn't. Within days, the noise, the clutter, the dog smell. It filled every inch of my home. Delivery boxes appeared that I hadn't ordered. The sink overflowed with dishes. The same dog that destroyed my parents' couch was now tearing through my rug. When I pointed it out, my mother only said, "He's just adjusting to a new environment." A new environment. As if she'd forgotten whose environment it was. By day 4, I didn't feel like a homeowner anymore. I was the caretaker again. That evening, as I tried to eat dinner, my father called a family meeting. He sat at my table like a judge, elbows planted, voice firm. "Your mom and I have been talking," he said. "It might help if you pitched in a little more for groceries. Julia's between jobs right now." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Pitch in more? I'm already paying for everything. He shrugged, unfazed. "It's not about fairness, Terry. It's about family. We're all adjusting." Julia looked up from her phone and smirked. "You've always been the stingy one." That familiar ringing filled my ears. The same feeling I'd had at 22, 27, 30. The same script, different stage. Only now it was my house. I didn't reply. I just set my plate in the sink and walked into the backyard. The air was thick. The pool shimmered under the porch light, still and cold. I stared at my reflection and whispered, "How did I let them back in?" The next week blurred together. My father started fixing things, hooks in the hallway, new shelves in the laundry room, rearranged tools in the garage. My mother had opinions about everything. The grocery brands, my furniture, my walls. "You could make it cozier," she said one afternoon, holding up curtains I'd never seen before. Julia acted like she owned the place. She claimed the guest room, used my towels, my shampoo, my Wi-Fi. Her dog turned the hallway into its personal bathroom. And somehow I was the one cleaning it up. Every day brought new messes and new excuses. "He's old," Mom would say. "He just needs time." But the truth was they weren't adjusting, they were settling in. On the 7th night, I tried to have a real conversation. "Mom," I said quietly, standing by the counter. "It's been a week. I really need my space back." She didn't look offended. Just gave me that heavy, measured stare. The same one she used when I said no to family favors. "Terry, you have so much room here. We're not bothering anyone." My pulse jumped. "You're living here without asking me." Her expression softened in that patronizing way that made me feel sick again. "Honey, I think you're forgetting how much we've helped you. You wouldn't even have this house if we hadn't supported you through those years." My throat tightened, not from guilt this time but realization. They didn't think they were guests. They thought they had rights. All those years of paying bills, fixing things, covering for them, they turned my help into a claim. In their minds, this wasn't my new beginning. It was just another chapter in the same story, me working, them taking. I didn't argue. I just walked away. That night, behind a locked door, I took out a small notebook and started writing everything down. Dates, conversations, the smell of Julia's dog on my rug. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I needed proof, or maybe I was preparing for something I hadn't yet admitted. Either way, each word felt heavier, like I was writing more than facts. Like I was finally acknowledging the truth. They hadn't just shown up, they'd taken over. And I was done pretending otherwise. It began with a single piece of paper taped to my refrigerator. A chart filled with color-coded boxes, cheerful clip art, and a title printed in my mother's favorite cursive font, "Family Guidelines for a Peaceful Home." I stared at it, stunned. Quiet hours. 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. No frying after 8. Pool closed during work calls. Laundry reserved for Julia. Weekends only. Shared mirror policy. Maximum 10. 5 minutes per person. That's what it said. Like something out of a dorm handbook. Except this wasn't a dorm. This was my house. When I turned, my mom sat at the table, sipping tea like a queen on her throne. "It keeps everyone organized," she said calmly. "We all share this space now." Share. That word scorched its way through me. I tore the paper off the fridge, folded it once, and placed it on the counter. "This isn't shared. It's mine. You're here because I allow it." She smiled, soft, condescending. The kind mothers give when they think their daughter's just being difficult. "Oh, Terry," she sighed. "You've always been territorial." I didn't answer. That night I went straight to the hardware store and bought a lock for my bedroom door. The next morning she saw it. Her voice echoed down the hall. It's sad that someone in this family feels the need to lock her own door in her own home. Exactly, I said. She didn't reply, only muttered something about how ungrateful I'd become. A few days later things escalated. I came home early and found my bedroom door cracked open. I always locked it before leaving. Inside, my dresser drawer was half open, deodorant and shirts out of place. When I confronted them, everyone denied it. Julia shrugged. You're paranoid. Maybe the dog bumped it. The dog, of course, was curled up on my bed. That's when I realized this wasn't an accident. It was a test. Every day, something small was moved, borrowed, tampered with just to see how long I'd last before breaking. So I stopped reacting. I started recording. Then came the fraud alert. $300 pet store declined. I frowned, called the bank, and got the breakdown. Dog food, treats, and an ESA vest. Emotional support animal. When I got home, Julia was waiting in the living room. The dog sat beside her, proudly wearing a new blue vest. What's this? I asked, holding up my phone. Julia beamed. Now you can't kick us out. He's officially an emotional support animal. My jaw tightened. You used my card? She didn't even blink. It's not a big deal. You always help family out. I stared at her until that smirk faltered, and something in me shifted. They weren't just staying, they were settling in, using loopholes, claiming space, and I was done playing along. That night I sat by the pool, notebook in hand, the porch light flickering over the water. The pages filled quickly. Every note, every crossed line a piece of evidence. When I called my lawyer friend Josh and told him everything, he didn't sound surprised. Terry, he said, you're not just evicting people. You're dismantling a power dynamic. How? I asked. Quietly, he replied. Surgically. Document everything. Stop sharing. Take back what they think they own. I hung up and looked around. The couch was stained, the air thick with dog hair and leftover takeout. My once quiet home had turned into constant noise and invasion. They thought they'd rewritten the rules. But they hadn't realized one thing. I was done being a background character in my own story. It was time to reclaim it piece by piece. The next morning I woke with a plan. Not loud, not dramatic. Just deliberate. Step 1, stop sharing. I cleared the fridge, packed all my groceries into a mini fridge I ordered that day, and locked it in my room. Step 2, regain control. I changed the Wi-Fi password. When Julia asked why it wasn't working, I said, maintenance. I unscrewed the stove knobs every time I left for work. Swapped the bright bulbs in the guest room for dim ones, enough to make the space uncomfortable, but not cruel. Within 3 days, the atmosphere shifted. The silence wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs. Julia slammed doors. Dad smoked outside, mumbling about how cold the house felt now. Mom left sticky notes on the fridge. Communication is love. We're family, not enemies. They still didn't get it. They thought I was being distant. What I was really doing was enforcing boundaries, something they'd ignored my whole life. Then one night, Julia brought her boyfriend, Matt. I came home to find him on my couch, shoes on the table, eating my leftovers. Hi, he said, eyes still on his phone. Julia smiled. Matt's staying for a few days. Hope that's okay. I looked from her to the dog lying on my blanket to Matt. This isn't a hotel, I said evenly. Her tone hardened. You're acting crazy. He just needs a place to crash. Then he can crash at his place. Her jaw tightened. Arms crossed. You can't keep controlling everyone. You're not Mom. That one almost made me laugh. Me controlling? The same family that had overtaken my house now called me controlling because I said no. That night, I printed a new sign and taped it to the front door. Private residence. Authorized entry only. I installed 2 security cameras. Within 24 hours, the dog stopped having accidents. The kitchen stayed clean. Julia started moving quietly. Proof, I thought, that when people know they're being watched, their normal changes fast. Days slipped into a silent war. Mom tried to soften things, baking cookies, humming like everything was fine. Then one afternoon, I found a new sign taped to the living room wall. Family Respect Zone. No secret recordings or negative energy. Comic Sans. I just stared at it, took a photo for my notes and said nothing. Later Josh called again. "Don't provoke them," he warned. "You're doing it right. Just make it uncomfortable enough that they'll want to leave." So I did. Remote batteries disappeared. Hot water off during the day. Wi-Fi password changed again. Groceries labeled locked away. Every move small, precise, and completely legal. Julia cracked first. "This is insane. I can't live like this," she screamed after a cold shower. "You're not supposed to," I said quietly, walking past her. That night I found my notebook shredded, pages torn and scattered across the floor. The dog was gnawing on the last piece. I didn't yell. I gathered every scrap, placed them in a box, and scanned what was left. I'd already saved digital copies. I was ready for this. When Julia saw me calmly working, she sneered. "You think this is some courtroom drama? You're sick." "No," I said softly. "I'm finished." Then I printed formal notices and slipped one into each of their rooms. Notice of termination of implied license. You have 3 days to vacate. My mother tore hers in half. Julia laughed. But my father didn't. He didn't say a word. Just folded the notice, slid it into his pocket, and walked out. That was the turning point. The silence that followed wasn't rebellion anymore. It was recognition. They finally realized I meant every word. The next 3 days stretched endlessly, thick with tension. No one talked much. On the third night, my mother finally broke the quiet. "If we go," she said softly, "don't come running back when you need us." I met her gaze. "That's the idea." "I won't." Julia's eyes were swollen when she stormed past me the next morning, the dog tugging hard on its leash. She left a note on the counter. "You win. Don't expect us to forget." I didn't. I didn't expect anything at all. My father lingered the longest. He spent one last evening pacing the garage. When I woke up the next day, his car was gone. The house was quiet, truly quiet. I walked from room to room, running my hands along the walls, the shelves, the couch. Every sound that came back was mine. It didn't feel empty, it felt free. That night, I went out to the pool. The same place I'd once made my first silent promise to myself. The water mirrored the sky, still, clear, calm. "They think they punished me," I whispered. "But they set me free." And for the first time, the silence didn't frighten me. Felt like home. It's been 3 weeks since they left. 3 weeks since the house finally exhaled. For days, I kept expecting to hear footsteps. Julia's slippers shuffling down the hall, my mother's voice complaining about cold floors, my father's hammer echoing from the garage. But there was only stillness. At first, the quiet felt haunting. I'd wake and listen for sounds that weren't there. Slowly, I realized it wasn't silence that felt strange, it was peace. I started undoing what they'd left behind. I threw out the family respect zone sign, scrubbed the kitchen floor until the smell of dog shampoo was gone, and replaced the curtains my mother had insisted made the place cozier. The house began to breathe again. One evening, I poured a glass of wine, opened every window, and let the air sweep through. The walls seemed to hum with relief, like they too had been waiting for this moment. A few days later, Julia texted me just one line. "Hope the loneliness was worth it." I stared at it for a while before replying. It was. I didn't block her. Didn't delete it. I let it stay there, a quiet exhibit in the museum of what used to be. Because loneliness wasn't the word. It was solitude. And solitude was something I'd spent my whole life trying to earn. Then came my mother's turn. A Facebook post, public of course, caption "Weekend with the real crew." Family time, smiling face with smiling eyes, #grateful, #Nodrama. The photo showed the 3 of them at a lake house, matching shirts, big smiles. No invite. No mention of me. Once that would have crushed me. I'd have felt like the forgotten child, the one who did everything right, stayed quiet, and still ended up outside the frame. But this time I didn't feel erased. I felt done. Because for once they couldn't guilt me. They couldn't twist my silence into duty. That Sunday I cleaned the pool, replaced the broken bulbs, and bought new plants for the porch. It became a ritual, reclaiming inch by inch everything they'd left behind. In the evenings I sat outside with a new notebook, not the old one filled with wounds and timelines. On the first page I wrote things that belonged to me. Then I listed them. The house, the quiet, my boundaries, my freedom. And beneath it I added something I'd never dared to write before. Peace isn't selfish. It's sacred. Sometimes I wonder how it would have gone if I'd stayed silent, kept swallowing my discomfort, letting them reshape my world piece by piece. It would have been easier, at least for a while. No fights, no cold stares, no empty rooms. But the price would have been everything. That's what people forget. When you let guilt set your limits, you don't keep your family. You just lose yourself. Last week, I adopted a cat from the shelter. Quiet little thing, aloof, sharp-eyed, always watching. I named her Mara. She follows me from room to room but never too close. We share the same kind of calm. Companionship without demand. Sometimes we sit by the pool together, her curled beside me, the water mirroring the stars while the wind moves through the trees. And there isn't a single voice telling me what I owe. My phone buzzes on the table. A message from Mom. We miss you. Come visit when you're ready. I stare at it for a long moment before replying. Maybe someday. But not yet. Then I set the phone face down, lean back and let the quiet return. The pool ripples gently. Mara stretches beside me. And I think they didn't steal my peace, they showed me how to guard it. And this time I won't forget.